There is an old house in a small Croatian village, surrounded by forests. It was built in 1898. For the whole of the last year, we have been telling people that this house was built in 1898. We might have been wrong the entire time.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
I'm very confused about year because we have 1 year here on the top. Say 1880, no, 1896.
It's not 98? No?
So, and then we have here another year.
Curious. I was thinking it was the same.
No, it's not the same. This is cut into the stone above the entrance of the same house. It is about 3 meters off the ground, and unless the light comes across it at the right angle, you cannot read a thing. 1896. And above the year there is a name, J. Malnar. That is not how the family writes its name today. It is not the name on our channel either. Two dates and two spellings of one family name on one house. We went looking for the mistake. We thought we were trying to work out when this house was built. Instead, we started finding the people who built it. Now we have another mystery here. So at the top of the door we have year 1896. So we don't know officially what this year means, but what I believe is that the house was built actually 1896. So the whole outside part of the house was done. And then when you build a house like this in the past, you usually, when you finish the construction of the house from outside, you usually have to wait around 2 years to house set naturally on the surface to dry properly the walls and everything, so you can actually start doing the things inside. Maybe that's why we have outside house 1896, and inside on terrazzo floor we have another year, which is 1898. The strange part is that none of this was ever hidden from us. We saw the stone. Both numbers were in front of us from the first day. 1898 is inside. It is set into the terrazzo floor of the entrance hall, in the middle of the room, and you stand on it to get anywhere. The number is large, it is clean, and we stood on it every single time we came here. That number went into my head and stayed there. Everything we wrote and everything we said about this house came off that floor. 1896 is outside and above your head. The stone is the same color as the wall around it, and most of the day it is just white on white. The first time I saw it, I thought it was a block the builders had put over the entrance, the way all houses here often have. Then the sun moved, and there were letters in it. So we did not really miss the stone. We saw it, and we let the number we already had win. The name worked the same way, and that one was on me. From our very first conversation, the previous owner told us the man who built this house was Juraj Malnar. He was not guessing. This is what he had always been told, and as far as I know, he believes it still. So when we finally looked properly at that stone, we were not reading a name, we were reading it through a name we already had. For a while I tried to explain to 2 years myself. Maybe the outside was finished first, and the inside came later, with the floor going in near the end. This is still what I think happened, but I do not have a document that proves it. And while I was busy building an explanation, I nearly walked past the simpler point. So, for this kind of floor, was very expensive at this time, and just rich family could afford to have this. What I know, before this kind of floor was covering the whole ground floor, according to previous owner. So, and at some point, because the house didn't have water, so they had to put the pipes and everything later. 1898 does not necessarily contradict 1896. The date in the terrazzo can tell us when the floor was made. It cannot by itself tell us when the house was built. So that was the first assumption we had to let go of. The 2 years might not be competing answers at all. But the name still needed explaining. One thing is worth saying before we go into it. The family still exists, and Malnar is the name they used and have used for generations. What we wanted to understand was why the stone says something different.
So the house is from 1896. Where they came from that 1898 then?
So instead of trying to work it out ourselves, we went looking for something written down. We did not go to an archive, and we did not need permission. The parish books for this village had been scanned and put online on a free site that anybody can open. They are handwritten, and they are hard to read, but they are there. And what we found was not a mistake. It was a name that had not settled yet. This is one page from the parish book. 1 month in 1894. The same priest, written about the same family. Here he writes Malnar. A few lines down, he writes Malnar. He was not being careless. He was writing what he heard. A name in a village then was not something you had a document for. It was what people called you, and it had not finished settling. At their wedding in 1887, somebody had written the surname with 2 L's. Even Juraj's own first name appears in several different forms in these books. And this is what not a settled country either. Over those years, the region changed hands more than once, and the language of the paperwork changed with it. So the stone was not pointing us at a different family. It was pointing us at the older written form of the same name. And then the books gave us something else. They started telling us who Juraj was. In 1889, the records called him a dealer in small goods. 2 years later, they called him a merchant. And once we knew that, the house itself started to make more sense. Because the Lokve you see today is not the Lokve this house was built in. That is the name of the village. We have not said it on this channel before. In 1811, a road opened between Karlovac and the sea at Rijeka, and it ran straight through here. It was called the Louisiana. For most of the 19th century, It was one of the main connections between the inland and the coast, and this village sat directly on it. Timber went down the road. Trade came up it. Houses grow along the line of it. 6 years before the date craved into this house, the village had 1,442 people. That is the largest population ever recorded here. So this house was not built in the quiet village you are looking at today. It went up in a place with money moving through it. Which is how a house in a mountain village ends up with a terrazzo floor. Terrazzo is an Italian craft. Nobody in Lokve lined floor like that. Whoever did that one had to be brought in and paid. So this is the main entrance, main hallway. So now we have one room on this side, another on the other side, and there is 2 more rooms. So I don't know if this was completely open at some point in the history. Previous owner told me the whole ground floor was a store. How it was organized, I don't know. So this is the main store, I think. Now it's pretty much just wall. Jure was a merchant. Once we knew that, the ground floor stopped looking like a set of large empty rooms. 3 entrances open onto a terrace across the front. Behind them are 4 rooms and a hallway. The whole ground floor is organized around the shop. It was not a small shop added to somebody's house later. The ground floor was designed around it. And then we found something much later. 23 years after the stone went over the door, the shop had to be registered all over again. The war had ended, the state had changed, and the new authorities wanted their own paperwork. The shop was not new. Jure had been trading since before this house existed. What was new was the government. So the family put their name on a fresh document, a general store. Malnar, Juraj i synovi. Malnar, Juraj and Sons. In the license names the man actually running the shop, Nikola, Juraj's son, born in this village in 1892. The document matters for a different reason than the others. This is no longer a priest deciding how to write down a name he had here. This is the family on their own business, under a new state, writing their own name, and the name is Malnar. That is the form they carry today. That is the surname their descendants use. That is the name the village knows, and the name of this house today. So Malnar on the stone is not proof that Malnar is wrong. It is part of the earlier history of the same name. We did not choose it, we inherited it, like everything else here. And there is one more thing we inherited. Nobody lived in this house for decades, but it was never simply abandoned. The family kept it standing. They did not restore it, and they did not improve it, but they protected enough of it that any of this was still here to find. By this point, we had our answer about the name, but the books had started giving us something we had not gone looking for. The family knew about 5 children. In the books we found 11. 6 of them died before they were 7 years old. I'm not telling you this only because it is sad, although it is. I'm telling you because those rooms started to feel different to me. We had been walking through a house with 23 rooms and thinking about its size, how many rooms there are, how much space there is, what two people are supposed to do with all of it. And then we were shown this. It is a postcard of the village, and the building in the middle of it is this house. Juraj made it himself. He owned the first camera in Lokve. He photographed the village and published his own postcards. Turn this one over and his name is printed along the bottom. Published by J. Malnar, Lokve. There were several of them. This is the one we have a copy of. So this is not a picture of the house taken by somebody passing through. This is the man who built it, photographing his own house and putting it on a card that people could send away. Look at the front of it. 14 people standing outside, 2 more leaning out of an upstairs window. 16. Juraj's grandson told us that all of these people lived in this house. We are 2 people in a building with 23 rooms, and we keep asking ourselves what we are going to do with all of them. There were once 16 people living here. We started this looking at 2 numbers cut into stone. We ended up looking at the people behind them. There is still one part we cannot answer, the year. 1896 is carved into the house. 1898 is set into its floor. We know only why those 2 days do not necessarily contradict each other. What we still do not have is a document that tells us exactly what happened between them. We're still looking for it. Until we find it, both days stay exactly where they are. For a year we thought 1898 was the answer. Now we know it was only one piece of it. 1896 was above the door the whole time, so was Malnar. We had seen both of them. We just did not understand what they meant yet. A lot of what you have just seen came from the Malnar family. The postcard, the trial license, the papers, and the answers to questions the books could not answer. They have been generous with all of it, and this video will be a much thinner thing without them. Thank you. Next time, we go through all 23 rooms, this time knowing a little bit more about the people who once lived inside them. So, we also have one interesting space here. Thanks for watching. If you want to follow what happens to this house, subscribe. There is a lot more coming.